All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call to order the September 23rd, 2024 City of Charleston Committee on Real Estate meeting to order. We've got a very extensive agenda today. We got 14 items on the regular agenda. Um, so please bear with us as we move through it. Seems like I've been given the honor for an invocation. Let's just have a moment of silence today, please. All right. Thank y'all. Um, First item up is approval of the August 19th, 2024 meeting minutes. Can I entertain a motion?
So move.
Second.
All right, moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. First item up is an authorization for the mayor to execute a PSA between the city of Charleston and the Abundant Life Church of Charleston for some property over at 1955 Bees Ferry Road. Ms. Dinwiddie, do you have some remarks on this one?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good afternoon, committee members and guests. This first item on the agenda has to do with the Church Creek Flood and Resilience Project. I understand that the acquisitions were approved back in 2021. So what we're bringing before council today is the actual purchase and sale agreement for that agreement to be approved. This is an agreement between the city and Abundant Life Church of Charleston, who would be the seller and the grantor. What this agreement covers is the acquisition of approximately 5 acres of land. That TMS number ends in 030. This would be a fee simple acquisition. Additionally, the purchase and sale agreement also includes the grant of a permanent stormwater easement on TMS ending in 029. Both of these properties would be used as part of that flood and resiliency project. I understand that our stormwater team would be improving the properties with some berms, walls, conveyance, piping to help the flooding in that area. The acquisition price is $157,000, which matches the appraised value of the fee simple and the easement. If there's any questions about this, I'm happy to answer them. I believe that we also have members of our stormwater division on here who can also speak more to the project if you have any specific questions.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval. Get a motion.
Second.
So we can start.
All right, moved and properly seconded. Any comments or questions from the committee?
I remember it from last year, so I'm glad we're moving forward with it.
Councilman Bowden has a question.
Good deal. Stephen, eyes on the road, but you're recognized.
Thank you. And sorry, I'm joining this way. But as you said, this was approved to go forward with this in 2021, and we're just now doing it. So it's been a difficult process, but good work by the stormwater department to keep this moving forward. This is going to, along with other stormwater storage projects, make it different in West Ashley. And I've shared with a few people that I think we were a little bit more resilient to Tropical Storm Debbie out there than I thought we might be based on past storms. So I think that's progress. I think we can see progress being made and continuing to be made. I know, I for one am great.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Any further comments or questions from the committee? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to take items B through E together.
You read my mind. Moved and properly seconded to take all 4 items related to Moja together. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it.
Now
Ms.
I'd like to
Dinwiddie.
make a message to approve. These are all kind of retroactive leases.
Great.
Make a motion to approve items B through E.
Second.
All right, move to take B through E together. It's properly moved and seconded. Any comments or questions from the committee? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. Item F is an authorization for the mayor to execute a lease agreement between the city of Charleston and the IAAM for a portion of the Maritime Center over at 10 Wharfside Street. Can I entertain a motion to get this one on the table?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Ms. Dinwiddie?
Yes, sir. So item F has to do, as just a little bit of background, going back to September 2021, the city, the aquarium, and the museum entered into an MOU, recognizing the fact that we all have, unified goals of wanting to promote the education and the history of the Charleston area and the Maritime Center and the harbor down there. So what we've done is in 2021, we entered into an agreement, the three parties did, for the aquarium to lease and renovate the first floor of the Maritime Center. And you guys are probably familiar with that project right now. That's wrapping up. They flood-proofed and they're turning that into classrooms downstairs. The other part of the MOU was for the museum to be able to lease the second floor of the Maritime Center, as well as a small space on the first floor of the Maritime Center. Underneath or under that MOU, the museum is going to be renovating their second floor lease space, also for educational classrooms, as well as some office space for them. The first floor section that they would be leasing is about 500 square foot. It was previously used as a ticketing office, and the city recognized at the time a need to have maybe grab-and-go meals, drinks, things like that as well. So what the museum will be using that first floor space for is they'll also be renovating it for kind of a cafe space, as well as a ticketing office for the harbor tours that come off of the Maritime Center docks. So what this lease agreement is basically putting into terms that lease for the museum. It would be, they would be responsible for renovating the second floor as well as that first floor space. It would have an initial term through 2045 with one optional renewal period of 25 years. That term was intended to match what the aquarium lease is as well. So both entities would be leasing for the same periods. It is a $1 base rent for the museum. However, if they were to sublet out the retail space, we would have an opportunity to split the revenues from that retail space with them. That was something that we negotiated to try to recoup some of the revenues for the use of that first floor space. Let's see. Assignment and sublets are only allowed with the city's permission. So if they are going to sublet that first floor space, it does have to come back to council to approve that, including the terms of the rent to be charged. And I believe that is all of the important terms. If there's any questions, though, I'm happy to address them for you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Dinwiddie. And does anybody have any comments or questions
for staff?
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. All right, we're on to page 2. Could I entertain a motion that we take G through J together?
So move.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. And could I entertain a motion to go ahead and get this on the floor so we can hear a little bit more about this one from staff?
Sure, move for approval.
Yes, second.
Moved and properly seconded, G through J. All in favor?
Well, we're gonna hear from staff.
I'm voting right now.
Oh, sorry. I'm getting carried away. Sorry about that. Ms. Dinwiddie, you want to let us know what's going on over at the marina?
Yes, sir. And I'm going to take, if it's okay with committee, I'm going to kind of address G and H together, and then I'm going to address I and J together. G and H have to do with 3 Lockwood, which the city currently leases to Charleston Marine Holding Associates. This is a 1985 ground lease. And what is happening here is Charleston Marine Holdings and Safe Harbor. Safe Harbor currently leases and operates the city marina from the city. Safe Harbor is interested in acquiring Charleston Marine Holdings leasehold interest for 3 Lockwood. That building is a 3-story building that is sublet out for retail and office space. In order for Safe Harbor to acquire that leasehold interest, they are requesting 2 10-year extensions to the lease agreement. The first extension would be a 10-year period. The second extension would also be a 10-year period, and during that second 10-year period, we would bring the rates up to fair market value. Currently, like I mentioned, that is a 1985 lease that is set to expire in approximately 3 years. So the amendment would give 20 years of extensions. In addition to the extensions that are being requested, they're also asking for the ability to relocate the improvements if the barrier extension project is determined to materially affect the improvements that are being leased. If it is determined that the barrier extension project would have a material impact, this amendment would allow Safe Harbor the ability to relocate those improvements onto the other section of the property that Safe Harbor currently leases. So they would be able to relocate those improvements. The last portion of this amendment is that if they determine that they're not able to relocate the improvements, then there would be a termination fee that the city would pay equal to the fair market value of the leasehold interest. The idea here is that we would hopefully be able to get reimbursed that fair market value from the U.S. Army Corps as part of that barrier extension project. So this one is a little more complicated compared to the variety store. So the 3 Lockwood, the Charleston Marine Holdings, includes the extensions, the ability to relocate, as well as the termination fee. The variety store, very similar, except it's not asking for extensions. It's asking for the ability to relocate the improvements, as well as a termination fee if they were not able to relocate those improvements. I see Mayor Cogswell has a question. I'm happy to address that. I also wanted to let committee know that we do have representatives of Safe Harbor here with us today who've asked the opportunity to address committee members. But I'm happy to answer any questions first before I turn it over to Safe Harbor.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I see the mayor's got his hand up. Go ahead.
So just for some added context, I have met on a number of occasions with Safe Harbor about 3 Lockwood, as well as with the current leasehold interest group. And, you know, Safe Harbor has been a very good steward of the marina. They want to grow. I do think it is a good partnership that we have, and I think they will be good stewards of that property. The initial requests were for a longer term under the current rates, which, you know, from a financial side of things, didn't make a lot of sense to me. That's why we got the 10 and 10, the second 10-year going to market rate. And while I appreciate the idea that we would still be 7 years net at a lower rate than market, you know, again, I think the investment that Safe Harbor is making in that area and would be making in 3 Lockwood, because they're moving their office spaces there and will be doing some real renovations, I thought was a reasonable solution, especially considering council 2 or 3 years ago did give 20 years to the variety store at no additional bump. So trying to be somewhat cognizant of the fact that we've set a little bit of a precedent at the marina, weighed into the 7 years of net increase. And then the one question I do have and want to make sure of is that we went round and round. I mean, the idea of this battery extension and the deal we're working on with the Corps, making sure that if they did improvements and we had to, for whatever reason, tear that building down, I think it's a reasonable request. But of course, the devil is in the details. And I want to make really sure that we're absolutely clear as what provides, adverse value. I mean, if we come in and put construction 20 feet off of the leasehold interest, that isn't gonna trigger some big penalty for us that we got to relocate them, and we think it's okay because the Corps would pay maybe 65% of it. I want to make sure that language is pretty clean and clear, and I'm trust safe harbor, but devil is in the details there.
Mhm. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Dinwiddie, do you have any comments on any of that before we go to go to Councilmember Gregg, or just want to make sure we,
Sure, and I
close that loop?
Yeah, I hear what the mayor is saying. I'm not quite sure I understand exactly what he's asking for. We have said in the versions of these amendments, we've said that we have to have the right to approve the relocation of any improvements that are going to be relocated. And I understand that you say that you want to be sure that we're going to be reimbursed from the Corps. Is that what you're saying?
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that what would trigger a relo is very clearly defined, because there's going to be a lot of construction going on, and right to quiet enjoyment or whatever else might come up from that construction. I don't want that to, trigger something that could, end up costing us a lot of money. So that's my main point, is just wanting to make sure that language is crystal clear. There is going to be construction. We're going to try and design it to where it would have limited impacts. But what the details are on that relo are going to be very important.
Yes, sir. So what the amendment currently says is, after the Corps has approved the design, right? So we know exactly where this is going to go. We would provide a copy of that to Safe Harbor so that they can also see what improvements it's going to affect. And if it's materially impacted, that's the only time that they would be able to relocate the improvements. And the way materially impacted is defined is if it's going to diminish the use of the building so that they cannot keep using it the way they currently are, or if it's going to impact the utilities so that it can't operate, if it's going to diminish the capacity of the utilities and those have to be relocated. Or if it were to impact any other improvements so that it cannot be operated the way it currently is. And it is set out there pretty clearly, I believe, in the amendment, what is exactly determined to be a material impact that would allow for those improvements to be relocated.
If I could see those, but I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
No, those are some good points. And, there's a lot of uncertainties with this project, and, these agreements can have the potential to be subjective and vague. And I think the ability to pin it down as best as we can on the front end is time well worth spending. Councilmember Gregg, you have some comments, questions?
Thank you, Chairman Appel. Yes. How many usable square feet are in that building, 3 Lockwood, right now?
1,000 or 15,000 maybe.
I have a 13,964 square feet.
So they're paying, so it's $8,063 roughly per month.
Currently the monthly rent is 7,379 per month.
And give me the square footage one more time.
13,964.
I mean, that's $6 a foot. I venture to say that there's not a place in the city you can rent space for $6 a foot. I understand we extended the Marina Variety Store, but shame on us. I mean, I feel like if we keep extending these leases, we're never going to recoup our or get back to normal market rates with any of these leaseholders. I just think it's incumbent on us looking out for the taxpayers of the city of Charleston to adjust these leases up to market rate at this point.
Yeah, again, I echo you. I did the same calculations. I met with them on the current leasehold interest. I mean, they've pleaded their case that, you know, they built that building. It was a ground lease. And, you know, they should have gotten the extension done when the variety store, because that went through with unanimous approval, as I understand it, because they've been such a stalwart of the community. Again, but I had the same points that you've made. Again, I think we've set a little bit of a precedent there, and the compromise was that instead of 20 years on the lease, we did, in essence, a net 7. And that, coupled with the relationship with Safe Harbor, the money they're putting into the marina, and then the fact that we are going to be in all likelihood doing a lot of construction in and around it, or the extenuating circumstances that I came to. But certainly respect where you're coming from on.
Yeah, very fair point. And perhaps at some point we could maybe get a bit of a blurb from the marina representatives that are here today about what sort of the big picture plans are here, so we can have for the record sort of some of those factors that the mayor alluded to. But before we do that, let's I'd like to recognize Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Dinwiddie, can you go through the completion of the original lease? If it runs its life, what happens?
So for the 3 Lockwood lease, if that naturally terminates, which is scheduled for April 30th, 2027, at that point, if we were to put it out for bid or release, we would have to go through that bid process, from what I understand. What is important about the expiration of that lease is, since it is a ground lease, once it does expire, we would own the improvements on the property, whereas currently we own the land, we lease the land. They built it, and they own the improvements currently.
So basically 39 years ago, if my numbers are correct, the original folk entered into an agreement that if it ran the lease, at the end of the lease, the property comes back to the city. Am I incorrect?
No, sir, you are correct.
Okay. I think that's an important point. We've got, and you're right, Mr. Mayor, well, you say we extended the lease, setting the precedence, but there was a large capital investment in the docks and all of that stuff. I mean, our marina was upgraded a pretty good bit. I know some people that didn't like it, but some people did. But the capital investment in the overall marina certainly has been improved. But this one, kind of sticks out to me. And the reason I say that, originally, everybody was in favor, and for better part of 40 years, have been in favor of those terms. Now we're going to extend it. 40 years ago, we didn't have the issue of a perimeter wall. Today we do. And to pass on potential costs to the city, if somebody has to relocate, if we extend this lease, et cetera, that we just heard, and we would be passing on additional costs to a future mayor and a future council. I don't think that's fair. When it comes to doing this perimeter wall, I've seen no provisions where the Corps or any government agency is going to pay 100%. So there's going to be some sort of cost sharing there. There's going to be some sharing that the city's got to come up with, a match of which we don't have right now. You know, I've always talked about streams of revenue that we have to create to be able to, for the city to be able to afford some of the challenges that we have in front of us. And what we're doing here is we're increasing the potential expenses to the cost of this wall. To have a situation that if it ran its course in 40 years, well, 3 more years from now, the city would have no cost. Actually, the city would get an asset. And to move forward with an agreement that says if they ran into any additional circumstances because of the wall that's going to protect the city, we would need to compensate them at market rate. I think is unreasonable.
Well, I think, if I may, I think you make a good point, and maybe I didn't catch this detail, but, well, first off, let me just address the perimeter protection, the wall. I do think that, that really even the Corps plan didn't directly impact this property. So, I don't see it going through the building. So I do think it's somewhat of a moot point, but just, better to be safe than sorry. I think the idea of the relo, and us frankly having to pay for any of it, would be, is a relevant point. I mean, I think if there has to be a relocation, maybe that's a clawback they could have with the original leasehold interest. But, otherwise, I think them putting the investment in there, if we were just, again, I'm going to play the devil's advocate and just let it lie and we expect to get it back. Nobody's going to put any more money into it, I can assure you, with only 7 years left on a ground lease, because they're going to have no recapture of that in the building itself. So I do worry without some extension that it would fall into disrepair and it'd be kind of an eyesore, and it is a city-owned property. So just for whatever that's worth, I think we could negotiate on the relo and any liability we might have there. And then, again, I would go back to, I do think the positives outweigh the negatives on that 7-year delta on the master lease being at a below market rate. Just given all the other nuances and context.
Well, as it stands right now, I just think we passing on costs for revenue we know right now we don't have. And as far as nobody invested in the building, if the building came back to the city, it'd be wise for the city to reinvest in its own property at that point. So
I agree, but it'd just be a lot of deferred maintenance at that point.
I agree. I agree with all of that. But as it stands right now, it's so much in the favor of the person having the lease extension. And I mean, we don't have monopoly money. We have to deal with fiduciaries of other people's money. From the city standpoint, we've got taken on additional expenses that I don't think we should. In particular, we don't have to. So maybe we need to relook at this thing, but right now it doesn't seem a good extension for the taxpayers. Don't everybody speak at once, but
Thank you, Mr. Councilmember Waring. Does anybody else from the committee have any comments or questions? I know, like I mentioned, we've got the representatives from Safe Harbor on the call. I mean, perhaps they can speak to some of this if they'd like to be recognized. I, for one, would like to hear about how this fits into the broader plans for the marina and the property, and if you could also address some of what Councilmember Waring raised, I think that would be beneficial.
Hi, everyone. This is Marshall Leonard. Thanks for having us. I'm Director of Acquisitions for Safe Harbor. I will defer to Robbie and Reeves on having more local knowledge as far as the plan for reinvestment and how that kind of fits into the broader plans for the marina property. One thing I did want to address that I think is important is, like the mayor recognized, we are kind of thinking through how to draft against a series of unlikely events taking place. The instance where the property is needed for the flood project, having a material or an immaterial impact on our building. While we don't anticipate that resulting in a material impact, the way that it's currently drafted is that if it's determined we can no longer use that building or the entirety of it is needed for the project, and it's then determined that we are able to relocate those facilities to elsewhere within the marina lease footprint. I don't believe that it's drafted where we have any shared costs with the city of that relocation. Safe Harbor would be paying for that relocation on its own. And I think the scenario where the cost is shifted to the city is if it were determined to have a material impact and we can no longer operate that property. And then for some reason, we get into the scenario where we cannot relocate those facilities. In that instance, we have acquired a property where we're looking to not only extend the lease, like the mayor pointed out, to kind of justify the investment into the property. But at that point, we've kind of put that in and don't have any ability to replace it and are sort of out of an office building and an amenity that we know a lot of people rely on within the premises. So in the instance where we can relocate, and we think that as of now, although an unlikely scenario, would be relatively feasible at the time, Safe Harbor would pay for the cost of that relocation.
Well, Robbie Freeman.
Yeah, thank you for allowing us to speak. I appreciate y'all taking this issue. I just wanted to give y'all a little historical perspective on 3 Lockwood. Back in, I guess, 85, when they did it, Kit Regnery actually had a business in there called Time Out. He was a Hobie Cat dealer, and Kit and his partners went to the city and said, look, we need some space down here at the marina for these small businesses that support the marina. And that's how that building came into being. And actually, I think in the original ground lease, they were restricted that they had to lease it to marine related businesses. And which leads me to our Safe Harbor wanting to kind of own and control what goes on in this building. There's a wonderful tenant mix in there right now that are basically amenities for the marina. We've got a wine store, a liquor store, a sail maker, several yacht brokers. And with if nothing happens now, the current owners won't be able to lease out past 3 years. And we want to hang on to those people. A lot of them have been there a long time. They're wonderful amenities to the marina. So our interest in getting it and controlling it is to keep it going and to control the tenant mix. The worst thing that happens, and this has happened a few times over the years, is we get a tenant in there. We had a beauty shop in there one time, and it would turn over about 20 cars an hour, and it was a disaster for the marina because of the parking. Really interested in trying to keep the tenant mix in there, marine related and strong amenities for the marina. The other point is that I think based on what we know today about the wall, we don't think it's going to affect this building. And like many leases, you put so much language in there anticipating things that might happen. I think the last few times we met with the mayor, it sounds like it's not going to affect this building, but we certainly want to protect the city if it does have to come down for some reason. And but also protect ourselves so that we can try to recreate that someplace else on the premises. And the last thing I just want to say about that building, it is a high maintenance building. It's right on the water. Those of you who've lived here and driven by it over the years, there's a lot of work that goes on that building. It's one of the highest maintenance buildings down here because I think it wasn't built that great back in the 80s. They built that building on top of an existing foundation from an old government building that was sat on that corner back when this was the minesweeper base. So it certainly served us well, but it's not like the city's going to get back a brand new building that's going to last another 30 years. It is a very high maintenance building. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that historical perspective. Anybody else from the marina have any comments for the record? I see Councilmember Gregg has his hand up. You are recognized.
Thank you. Ms. Dinwiddie, is it possible for us to get a copy of the subleases that they have with tenants? I just have a question on what rates they're charging these tenants that are in this building right now.
Yeah, I can certainly reach out and get copies of those to share with committee members.
Okay. I mean, my question is, no secret here is, if we're leasing this building out at $6.34 a square foot, which again, I'd say there's not a place you can get downtown for less than 20. Is that savings being passed on to these tenants, or is this money going to Safe Harbor? I mean, I understand the need to keep a mix of tenants that service the marina, but that would be money that it seems like would go to the city since we own the property, not to another company. So I'd like to see what the rates are being charged to these subleases in this building.
Yes, sir. I can certainly get copies of those to share with you.
Thanks.
All right, Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like I said, we're all friends here. We're trying to do the right thing for both parties, citizens as well as our business community. Should we, now that Safe Harbor's heard maybe another side of the issue that probably wasn't considered as much as it should have been, with these costs being the responsibility of the city if something negative were to happen, and some of the lease per square foot that Councilman Gregg has just said, can this be revisited as opposed to trying to make sausage on this committee meeting? Can that maybe Safe Harbor and some of the discussions that we just talked about be revisited, and then maybe it's brought back to real estate?
To that end, Mr. Chairman, I move to defer and we get some more information. I've got some financial analysis per Councilman Gregg's perspective that I can share, that I did kind of back of the envelope. Gives you a little bit of color in my thinking. So I have the benefit of a lot more meetings on this. So I'm happy to share that with council, as well as getting all the documents so they can do their own assessment as well.
Yeah, I second the motion to defer.
And just to be clear, this is for G through J?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
he made the motion, Mr. Mayor, but I'm saying, yeah.
So this will be for the Marina Variety Store items as well, Mr. Mayor?
I think so. I think it's all part of the same conversation. Of course, the Marina Variety Store is slightly different in that there's already an extended master lease there. So it's more about the reload.
Got it. I see Mr. Bleeker's got his hand up. Before we vote on that, I want to give him an opportunity to speak.
He's on mute.
I think you're on mute, Mr. Bleeker.
Still on mute.
Is there a way we can unmute him? from our end.
That's out of my pay grade.
Ah,
How about
There he is.
oh, we got him.
Thank you very much. I don't have many Zoom meetings, but thank you, Mr. Mayor, and honorable members of the committee. I represent the Marina Variety Store. The Marina Variety Store has been a tenant at the marina for 50 years. They built the building and have been really has become part of the community. The lease is $60,000 a year. It changes with the consumer price number each year, I think. But that has nothing to do with what's going on here now. What we want to tell you is that my clients have aged, and they wanted to pass on the ownership of the variety store to the Safe Harbor. And I think all of you agree that Safe Harbor would be a great tenant for the Marina Variety Store. The plan is to, and there's an existing contract between the Marina Variety Store and Safe Harbor, and it requires the approval of the city council of the city. It's very the requirements can easily be met by Safe Harbor. That the Marina Variety Store management will stay on and make sure that Safe Harbor knows how to run a restaurant. And the only thing that has popped up is the fact that there is a provision in the lease that the city has a right to, on 1 year's notice, the right to cancel the lease. Safe Harbor is a public corporation, and to approve the purchase of this, they cannot do it with that plan unless there is a right to continue the restaurant business. And this is a full service restaurant, and I think the only full service restaurant permitted in the marina is the one that is the Marina Variety Store. So if the city doesn't approve this, then nothing will happen. That the management, my old clients, will continue on and find some way to continue the operation of this business to their lease, until the end of the lease term, which is a number of years, I think about 20 years, Mr. Mayor. So what we are asking you to do is approve an amendment for an alternate location in the event that the city flood wall or whatever it's going to be requires the use of this location. I'm informed, and I think most of the committee members believe, I know Robbie Freeman spoke a minute ago, and from what little I know, but what perhaps the mayor knows more about, is that the Marina Variety Store will not be taken in the flood plans, or it's not anticipated that it would be taken. So the only thing before you on the Marina Variety Store today is the approval of this simple amendment, which is probably not going to have any effect whatsoever. The only thing, if you don't approve this, if it is not, if it cannot be approved by you, then there just won't be a sale. There won't be a transfer of ownership of the right to run this restaurant to another company. So that's all we're here for today. And I would urge you to, we've spent a lot of time on creating this contract, and this comes up, and we just go away and forget about it and keep on running the restaurant like it is. And I think your better bet, and that my clients have been very good tenants, and they run a very good restaurant. It's probably the community's second best restaurant in town. The prices are fair, and you go there to meet somebody that you have it's a wonderful place. So, and I think it would continue to be a better place if Safe Harbor came in and created a little nicer atmosphere there. So thank you for reconsidering that and passing it now so we can go on about the transfer. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bleeker, and appreciate that history and perspective on the Marina store. It truly is a unique feature in Charleston. It's I don't know if there's anywhere quite like it. We've got a motion and seconded to defer on the floor. I see the mayor and Councilman Waring like to be recognized again. Why don't we take it in reverse order there? Councilman Waring?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In light of what Mr. Bleeker just pointed out, actually, it's pretty good. You know, we took all these items in a kind of block way with 4 items. Mr. Mayor, maybe we should defer G and H, and then move. Then, because most of our discussion centered on 3 Lockwood, not actually.
Yeah, I think it is really, we should take them separately. We can do G and H for deferral. The only just detail I would point out, I have certainly no issue and welcome the assignment of the variety store lease. That I don't think would be a problem. I do want to get some, just as a final document, you know, the clarity on the assignment. I mean, the relo language, because as mentioned, I don't think it really impacts this building. So it might not be relevant.
Okay, well, listen, I'll yield to you on the motion.
So I'll amend my motion on the floor to defer items G and H with
Second.
and approve items I and J with the caveat that we would get clarity before signing on the relo language for the lease on 9 Lockwood.
Got it. And I think Councilmember Waring, do you accept that amendment?
I did second, yeah.
Okay, great. So we've got that amended and accepted. Call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
1 nay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, staff. Thank you for everybody from the various entities that participated today. I think this was a good discussion, and I think we're going to move this forward in a positive manner. So thank you, everybody.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If I can ask, could Councilman Gregg share a little bit of what his name was? I'm interested on that because we're going to be considering the reload. What was some of it?
Well, I guess I have questions about the assignment of the lease, and you know, I'd rather take that conversation in private, to be honest.
I got you. Okay, I hear you. Okay, all right. Thanks.
If I may, I'm sorry. Anything else, Councilman Waring?
No, I said thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is what I said.
At the pleasure of the chair, I'd like to recommend K through N be taken together, and I can give some explanation on them. It should be a little bit cleaner than the previous one. I think it makes sense to take K through N together.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. The ayes have it to take all 4 items together. Should we go ahead and get a motion?
I'll make the motion for approval on these, and then glad to give some intel backed up by Ms. Dinwiddie.
I'll second.
Great. Moved and properly seconded. And Mayor, take it away.
Sure. So this is the Deco space, that's city-owned property. That was the nightclub. It has been under, like what we've been discussing, it's been under a long-term ground lease. It actually has 3, technically 4 suites that are associated with it. And this has come about because we, in essence, have terminated the lease are looking to terminate the master lease and enter into a new lease with a new tenant. Deco was a real problem. We had a bunch of police reports coming out of it. That's what kind of started this whole initiative. And the special licensing committee voted to revoke their license. So, you know, and per the police chief and folks on the street, Officer Corey, it's been night and day in terms of Upper King Street because with this establishment gone. So I think it has been a positive having them out of there, particularly that it was in city-owned property. Now we've been left with the cleanup of it, and we had to buy out. So there was a lease and then at least one sublease and then multiple other subleases. And so it's a little bit of a nightmare cleaning it up. And where we are right now, there is still term left on this master lease. So what we've done is we've agreed to a settlement to buy out the balance at a net present value. So it's based on a calculation on what the net present value of their rent would be. And they've agreed to it. And then we've are ready to enter into a new lease with, in essence, the CVB, Helen Hill, and they're going to use this as like a test kitchen and some other tourism-related amenities that I think will be pretty spectacular addition to that area. And they're going to pay us, in essence, a market rate. Whereas we have been getting, I don't know, Miss Inwoody, it was like $7 or $8 or something similar to what we were just discussing. And now it's going to be, I think it's in the like 40 or $40 a square foot. So it will be a good revenue source. We are the one nuance, the build out, the buyout of the lease. We're giving the space to the CVB as is. And we're counting, they're going to fund the buyout, which I think now is where have we settled, like at
182.5.
182.5. They're going to take it, it's a mess, it's in bad shape. So they're going to take it as is, and we're going to net that against the rent, but we're still going to be netting out in a very positive way financially on this asset. So that's a lot. There's been a lot on this. We can get you all the subleases and the proposed terms with Helen, but I think net, this is a real positive, both in terms of livability and fiscally accretive to the city.
The only thing I will add to that, thank you, Mayor, is that we will also be assuming the 2 leases with the Quillen Group, which is the brick and the coffee shop, in 24 A, B, and C. They're currently paying market rates, so we'll just resume those leases until 26 when they term.
Okay.
One other thing, Councilman Appel, just real quick. What you're voting on today is the non-binding term sheet with CVB, with the goal that we'll have a master lease to present to you at the October 8th meeting for first reading, with these terms reflected.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Ms. Copeland, for that explanation. Councilman Waring.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think all of us know that the CVB is a hand and glove relationship with the city. Many of us remember to visit the reception center prior to the CVB putting a capital investment. Of course, we invested too. I think we put, what was it, like maybe $6 million in it. But I think who's not proud of the results afterwards? So got much more efficiencies out of it, put their offices upstairs, and we know the beauty and the unique aspects that exist on the first floor. So I'm glad we can partner with them on this project as well. So good deal.
All right. Any further comments or questions from the committee? All right. I'll Let's call for a vote. All in favor of K through N, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. Thanks for everyone's hard work on this. That brings us to the close of our non-annexation related items. We've got 5 annexations today. And I think there'll be some discussion on the first annexation, but it looks like the Roman numeral 2 through 5 might be a little bit more routine, let's call it. So
Mr. Chair, why don't we do a motion on O 2 through 5?
Okay.
Second.
All right, all in favor of taking 2 through 5 together, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. Can I entertain a motion to approve 2 through 5, which all appear to be standard residential annexations?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? I'll just like to mention real quick that 162 Stono Drive is the last property on Stono Drive and Riverland Terrace that's not in the city. So this is the first, I believe, of all streets in Riverland Terrace that is fully within the city of Charleston, and that is significant because that makes Stono Drive now eligible for undergrounding power lines, which is an extremely important issue for the folks in Riverland Terrace. State law, for some reason, doesn't let counties have franchise agreements, and they're not really set up to do that. So, with our new non-standard service ordinance, I certainly look forward to the appropriate time pushing forward a small project to underground the first street in Riverland Terrace, which I think would be quite an accomplishment. So hats off to all those in the city and in the community at Riverland Terrace for getting Stono Drive into the city of Charleston. So without any else said on that, let's take 2 through 5 for a vote, unless anybody else has any comments on these.
Congrats to you and your team and Ms. Molly Connor, man. She's doing a great job with these annexations. By the way, she responds. She's so punctual in her response. I'm going to give her her props. She's really good at what she does. And thank you for being on our team.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Right.
Yeah, she does a great job.
Yeah.
All right. All in favor of taking annexations 2 through 5, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. And for the remaining annexation item over on Folly Road, can I entertain a motion to go ahead and get this on the floor? And then I think we'll hear from staff.
For discussion. Go ahead.
Okay.
Second.
Yeah, second.
All right. Moved and properly seconded.
No, I said you got to get a second. I moved approval. Somebody else got a second.
I think, well, I can second it. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought I heard Councilman Bowden, but
good. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. So what's the best way to get this going? Molly, do you maybe want to kick us off, and then we can hear from Mr. Morgan and go from there?
Well, just
Absolutely.
for clarity, did we take a vote on, did we finish the vote or we just get a second?
I think we just got a second just to get it on the floor, and now we're going to.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Okay. I apologize. Brain's dead.
All good.
Thank you. So item number 1 under our annexations is unique in that city staff will not be recommending for approval of this item. And as our chair outlined, Christopher of our planning division is going to speak to staff's reasoning behind the decision. I also understand that Mr. Cooper and Mr. Wyatt have prepared a few exhibits as well. And if it's acceptable to the chair and the committee, can I share my screen while Christopher... Well, we hear Christopher's thoughts. Okay, perfect. Brittany, am I able to do that?
Yes, you should be able to share.
Thank you. Can everyone see this zoning map?
Yeah, yes.
All right, great.
Great.
Okay, so I know you all have had a long meeting, and I'm going to try to be as quick on this as I can be. This is a little bit of a complicated situation, but this is a request to annex 2.43 acres off of Folly Road. You see a zoning map in front of you that shows the parcels that are in question. And you see it's adjacent to Ocean Neighbors. It also is bordered by an existing plan unit development that was, I believe, the Cooper James or something like that.
That's correct.
And we have a broader view that will show you what's in the rest of that PUD. So let's go to the next slide, please, Molly. So this is a broader zoning map that shows the rest of the PUD where you see the letters PUD. That is the Spyglass Apartments. And that was a PUD that was approved about 10 years ago, a little bit more than 10 years ago, that allowed for those apartments. You all might remember there's a former junkyard over there, automotive junkyard. And so it was redeveloped into the Spyglass Apartments. That, of course, was before any of our new, stormwater standards were in place, anything like that. Now the request is of the applicant to bring in these two parcels that are outlined here on this image and add them to this PUD. Now, what's before you all today is just the annexation. Nothing about the PUD at present. The first step would be this annexation. But we had a lot of concern with these parcels coming in. And let's go to the next slide, Molly. And that is this slide that you see here. This is from our comprehensive plan. This is the land and water analysis of the city. That was done by the same folks that did the water plan that you all just saw, that looked very carefully at area elevations, at where tidal influences were, at where, different aspects of the geography would lead to persistent and regular tidal issues in the coming future. These areas that are in the dark gray that these parcels are highlighted as are in that. And that is, again, what we call our low impact and conserved. Basically, let's go to the next slide, Molly. The elevations are from 5 to 6 to 7 feet, so very low. You see even the buildings at Spyglass were built, higher than that. It's got a lot of challenges here. And ever since our plan was adopted in 2021, we have told folks that had parcels that were in these kind of elevations, particularly those that were undeveloped, that, we would not move those forward for annexation because it's just creating a scenario where the city is going to have other issues on that property as time goes by with the regular tidal flooding. And we know that, it's just very difficult to develop in those locations in a sustainable way. Our plan recommends that these sites, even if they were to be annexed, would only be, 1 unit per acre and everything built on stilts or, super elevated, that kind of thing. So we see it as very problematic and something that is not really going to achieve much for the city by virtue of this annexation. And that is why we are recommending against it.
Do we know what their intended use is? Are they asking for a zoning? I mean,
they are interested in townhouses on the site. I'm not sure exactly what the final density would be. It's currently zoned in Charleston County for 4 units an acre. So in the 2.5 acres roughly that's here, I guess you'd get 8, where's my math? 10 units, something like that under current county zoning for these parcels.
Councilmember Tinkler.
Mr. Morgan, did I understand it correctly that the residential is maxed out on the PUD?
Yes. All the residential units that were approved with this PUD went to the Spyglass Apartments and have been used. Now, there is commercial use that is allowed, limited business commercial use in the remainder of the PUD. So the areas that are adjacent to these two parcels are able to be developed from a limited business aspect. That would be, office, a restaurant, something like that. They would have to meet all our stormwater standards, those types of things. And we did hear recently that Charleston County has made all of James Island unincorporated area a special protection area. So their stormwater standards are basically very similar to ours as well. So the stormwater is going to be the same, as I understand it from Mr. Fountain. I believe he's on this call. but the stormwater standards are going to be the same whether it's in the city or not. It's just a question of which jurisdiction has the liability for things that go on there.
Understood. And Mr. Morgan, is you understand it, is the idea for these properties to be incorporated into the PUD post annexation if the city were to agree?
That is what the applicant would like to do. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then
That's a
have
separate
residential
vote.
units added to the PUD. Yes, sir.
That's a
So
separate vote.
That's right. So this would be just the annexation, not the rezoning piece, but
Correct.
And Mr. Morgan, where is the rezoning piece in the process? Has that gone to planning commission or
It has
is
not
that?
started because it all depends on whether these could be annexed or not.
Got it. Got it. That makes sense.
And even if
Okay.
it were to go forward, the way the comp plan is written, even the part that's in the PUD, if it were to change its designation, we would not be able to recommend from that. It could stay as the limited business and have a office or a restaurant or something like that built on it, but we couldn't recommend for additional residential units to be added to that PUD as per our comprehensive plan.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Any further comments or questions from the committee? I'm having a hard time seeing everybody just due to the screen share, so I
Councilman
appreciate
Bowden has a Councilman Bowden.
everybody. Councilman Bowden, please go ahead.
Christopher, since this is low impact conserved, does this have similar stormwater regulations, like Church Creek area?
I don't know if they're quite to that level. I know Matt Fountain was on the meeting earlier. He might be able to speak to that. Is Matt still here?
I am, if you'd like me to cover it, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, you're right with me chiming in.
Oh, absolutely. Please.
Yep. Councilman Bowden, yeah, so it is a special protection area for the city. It's a special protection area for the county. The county for new development projects has very similar regulations to us. We're a little bit different for redevelopment projects. Neither of those two are quite as stringent as the Church Creek regulations. They basically do not have the extra fill offset, the mitigation offset, the 25% additional that Church Creek has, and they, rather than holding your water for the extended period of time that Church Creek is, because of the recovery time in Church Creek, it's only it is a 24-hour hold of any new volume of water being generated in a special protection area, based on the fact that most of the rest of the city drains out a little bit faster, but otherwise similar regulations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fountain. Anybody else from the committee?
I got one last question, Mr.
Yes, sir.
The Fountain, we saw the elevations here range from 5, I think, to 7 feet. What were the elevations in Bridgeview townhouses that we had to buy out?
So it's a little bit different there, Mr. Chairman, in the Bridgepoint townhomes flood based on a rainfall, riparian flooding, where basically it acts as a stream with a restricted downstream area. So it's the rain that's causing the flooding on those Bridgepoint townhomes rather than the tide. I think the concern here that Mr. Morgan was mentioning from the comprehensive plan would be the tidal elevation. So a 5-foot ground elevation would correspond to about an 8-foot tide. When we hear an 8-foot tide, so just about what we've been seeing this last week. A 7-foot ground elevation would be a 10-foot tide, which is more at the end of like an extreme hurricane style tide.
Listen, thanks for the information, and thanks, Mr. Morgan, for his in-depth information as well. Thanks.
Absolutely. Christopher, just one last question. Is the opposition to this annexation something that's uniformly the position of our staff, or is there sort of a different thoughts on the issue?
Yes, sir. I mean, ever since we have adopted the comprehensive plan in 2021, about 3 years ago, I guess, we have used the low impact and conserved as a kind of measuring stick for new annexations. There are a few instances where within an existing neighborhood with existing built houses that there may have been a few low impact and conserved annexations, but we have been very stringent about undeveloped land, not bring that, isn't really surrounded by the city, that kind of thing, that not bringing that into the city. There have been many instances of parcels around the area that we have turned down from annexation that never made it to you all because we told them staff wouldn't support the annexation because they were low impact and conserved.
Understood. Okay. All right. We've heard from our annexation coordinator. We've heard from planning staff. I understand that the property owner or his representative is here. I want to give them the opportunity to briefly address us if they would like to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Apple and council members, for your time this afternoon. My name's Chip Wyatt. I'm the civil engineering consultant for Mr. Cooper. I will be here to answer any site-specific questions as it relates to the development or the potential development of these parcels. I think I'll let Mr. Cooper go ahead and introduce the proposed project to you and give you some general background information if that is suitable.
Certainly.
Yeah, you're good to go. They can hear you from there.
Ross, can you hear me all right?
Loud and clear.
All right. I have 3 preliminary comments that I would like to make before I start with my presentation. One is with regard to Councilman Waring, when they gave the prayer and asked for a moment of silence. I believe you and I were on the same page on our prayer, and that was thanking God for a glorious Saturday afternoon with the Carolina Gamecocks. That was quite a show, wasn't it?
It was.
Thank God for that game. Secondly, I would also like to share Councilman Waring's praise for Molly Connor. Molly is a wonderful young lady. She's always very polite, courteous, and extremely responsive. We've asked to meet with her on a few occasions, and she has always made herself available. And I think when you have an employee that can only be described with excellence, that kind of praise should be shared with the council members. Finally, I want to say thank you first for allowing us the opportunity to speak with you. I have been here through this entire session, and while I am not as tired as you are, I realize that all of you are pretty tired and want me to keep my comments as quick as possible. As y'all know, I am an attorney, so I promise you I'll keep my comments to within an hour's time. That's a joke for us. With that said, I'll move on with my presentation. Can we pull up, since you're not seeing me? Yes.
Ross, would it be okay if we share our screen real quick?
I do not have an opposition to that in theory, but I don't know if I am technically able to do that. Is that something we can accommodate? Is there, Brittany, is this?
Julia, that's okay for them to share?
Yes, it's fine.
Okay, thank you. Bear with me 1 second. It looks like our internet here just went down, so I've got my hotspot up. I just need to connect to one program real quick, so I apologize for that.
No problem.
Yeah, we just want to do this a different way. Of course. All right, are y'all able to see my screen now?
No.
It's black.
It's a black screen.
Yes, we can see.
She can't.
There.
Looks like it's all right. So y'all can't see the survey that I've got up right here.
Yeah. Can.
Okay, good.
You can?
They can see.
Okay. All right. Ross, what we are trying to do is, there are two lots that abut existing tract of land. There's an existing tract of land that's roughly 5.1 acres. And what we are seeking to do is to, the overall plan is we want to annex those two lots. We want to then combine those two lots with tract Z3. So we will have roughly almost an 8-acre tract. And then we wish to develop it as a low impact project. That will be limited to no more than 38 townhouse units. So that's the basic plan with regard to our project. I want to clarify a couple of things that I think are a little bit misleading. And so we're all under the same page of what's going on. Mr. Ware, you asked a great question about elevations. The brief statement by Mr. Morgan and on his statement to us in the sheet he gives says it ranges from 4 feet to 8 feet. And that is an accurate statement, but it's not a complete statement. There is a small area of land on the, I guess, if you're looking at the property on the very left sides of both parcels, 5.4 feet. The other areas go on up to 7 feet. The 8 to 8 feet, excuse me, 8 feet. The areas in the 4 feet area is a small area of marshlands, and we just received permission from the Corps of Engineers to fill those areas. So our property, both properties will have an elevation that will be consistent between 7 feet and 8 feet. So just for clarification of that point. I think that's a critical, and we will provide you in our PUD application the statement from the Corps of Engineers allowing us to fill in those small wetland areas. Those are the only wetland areas on this property. Go to lot Z3. And then just for clarification, this slide shows lot Z3. And as you see on lot Z3, there's a critical ditch which we have located, and that of course will be taken into consideration in the quality and the nature of our development. Could you go to the next slide? Yeah, it was on the 4 with a combination that should be done.
Push over here. Just got that network working again. Okay. We get that full document now, Randy. I did do a little work around there. There.
No. Is that where we're gonna?
Oh, here we go.
Okay, so this plat shows what we want to do is ultimately combine all three lots into a single tract of land for a proposed development of a residential community. As Chris pointed out earlier, but very briefly, my lot Z3 is part of the PUD. I'm not sure that was really clear in his earlier statements, but lot Z3 is part of the PUD. And as part of that PUD, excuse me, that property is zoned limited business. As he mentioned, there are quite a number of businesses that we can place in there, including restaurants and hair salons, a number of businesses. And I've asked a land planner to come up with what we could develop it as. And he has created a conceptual plan that I will show you now. Try to show you now.
Almost there. Big PUD document there.
Before the PUD, right?
Yeah, it was right up there.
There you go. All right. So this is what we're looking at right now. If for whatever reason y'all decide y'all don't want to work with me on amending my PUD, then I will be forced to develop in a way that's been approved. And so it's zone limited business. So what you see is lot Z3, which contains 3 commercial buildings. And so by right, I have the ability to develop that without any further approvals needed from the city of Charleston. However, I've had several meetings with my neighbors, and especially the community that's located right behind this property, the Ocean Neighbors community, because excuse me, they will be affected the most. And I have gotten strong pushback, and I mean strong pushback from Ocean Neighbors, because they do not want any sort of commercial development on lot Z3. In fact, they realize that the impact from a commercial project on their property is going to be far worse than a residential development. There's going to be light pollution, there's going to be air pollution, there's going to be noise pollution, there's going to be increased traffic. They're concerned about crime. So one of the things they pointed out to me, which is, I don't know, it's a valid reason to me, but I take it into consideration. They feel that the value of their properties will be highly diminished if city council fails to allow me to develop this as residential and forces me to develop this as commercial. And so I've taken their comments into consideration, and I've come back with a development plan for all the properties as residential. And I will present that to you right now. There it is. And as you can see, it's very limited in scope. It has a very limited number of units. It's only 38 units. Initially, I intended to develop it as a 48 unit, but I went back. I'm sorry, we get a little feedback. I went back with Chip and had Chip relook at this and come back with a residential development that would have a quote low impact on our neighbors and the property itself. And so we've come up with a townhouse project that's limited to 38 units. And on this property, there's going to be retention ponds to collect stormwater runoff. So it's not going to affect the ocean neighbors, their green areas. I know with Eric Schultz, his big thing is protecting grand trees. And we've designed this property or designed the property so that, or project, so that we will protect every grand tree. We don't anticipate seeking from staff, or not staff, but the Board of Variance, a request to demolish a tree. We go keep every single grand tree on this property. Additionally, we've met with the I'm selling this property to a group called DRB, the DRB group. They're a national group, and I've explained to them that how this project gets developed and the manner which it gets developed is extremely important. And they are behind 100% developing this project consistent with what this conceptual plan is that Chip has created. So we have a project. Let me ask you the elevations. So their elevations. We go to that next. How it's built up. Yeah, that's what we do. All right. This is the shows the elevations of the buildings, and if you notice, excuse me, our buildings have the garage located underneath. They're raised per the requirements, or not requirements, but per the recommendations of the comprehensive plan. We've taken that into consideration. You want to show them a couple of the other, and we're just going to go through quickly and show you some of the other elevations. And then the last elevations, it shows that there are going to be just small groupings together of these townhouses. We're not going to put 10 townhouses, string them together. We're going to have limited number of townhouses we're putting together on this project. So we think we've done a great job on getting input from the residents, and then creating a quality product, creating a quality project. We think this project has a lot of merit. And I want to go over just a few other items, and then we'll let it go. There's an excerpt from one of the plans. Y'all had several reports done, not just this one, but there's a report entitled Rethink Folly Road. Ross, I'm sure you're familiar with this report, but I want to bring to your attention the very beginning of that. This is the very first paragraph of the report. And in many ways, I think this is one of the most important things about this report. It says James Island has seen the least amount of population growth and development of all city areas over the past decade. And then it goes on to say, it is anticipated to see only about 3% growth over the next 10 years. I mean, isn't that an extreme comment to see something that says only growth of 5% over the next 10 years? I mean, they're not saying growth of 5% over the next each year over 10 years. They're saying 5% growth over 10 years. So that report shows there is a clear demand for quality residential development in James Island, at least in my mind, based upon the report prepared by the city. Secondly, I want to refer to the report. Excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold, so I beg, I'm sorry for the coughing. Turn to paragraph 113.
Was that the page 208 of the city plan?
Yeah. 208, yeah.
Yep.
Go over to the right side. All right. This is what Chris is referred to, why they can't get behind it. And it's this section right here. It says the designation encompasses two types of land areas. One, low elevation land, potential tidal flood areas, and future marsh migration areas. Some of these areas may see limited development, but structures are likely to be elevated so as not to impair natural intertidal systems. Uses are limited and residential densities limited to less than 1 unit per acre. I believe Chris's objection to our moving forward is only referencing the 1 unit per acre. And if I could get a clarification from Chris, before I move on, I would like to know if there's something else that we're doing wrong other than that 1 unit per acre. If you could answer that question for me.
Mr. Chairman, do you want me to answer that?
Mr. Morgan, if you'd like to, please go ahead, but we'll try to keep the questions and answers to a minimum here today for everyone's time.
The concerns about, overall long-term flooding, things like that, we had used the low impact and conserved over the last 3 years as a benchmark to say that if a property was designated that way from the land and water analysis, which this one was, that we would not pursue annexation of that in an undeveloped state.
But your base, we'll leave it at that. The final comment related to that is, Ross, it refers to the report when it goes to 1 unit per acre. The problem with that is that nowhere in that report does it make any reference to 1 unit per acre. There's no reference into it. So how can a recommendation be made by the report when it's not even addressed in the report? I think that the states encourage really have to address serious issues if they say, well, we're going to follow that recommendation, even though it's not even in the report. Our state statutes for zoning says that the cities have to use uniform, consistent practices, and the practices cannot be arbitrary and capricious. Otherwise, that legislation, which this is not legislation, is unenforceable. I think you got a real problem with this language. And I think Mr. Morgan is dodging that question. I think he needs to address it at a certain point. And we will come to have to address that one way or the other with regard to that.
Okay.
Then the last one is that excerpt.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Cooper, let's wind it down because we've got another meeting coming up here at 5. And
I think this is my livelihood, and it's at stake.
I get it. I get it.
We're wrapping it up now.
Thank you.
What I typed here is the excerpt from your comprehensive plan. And can you get a little larger for me? And I think that the language of this is critical because it says that the comprehensive plan are statements of community values and goals concerning the existing and future environment. They serve as a guide for decision-making and a dynamic tool for managing community change to achieve a desired quality of life. Again, language is a guide. In the next, there's a section in here that says about in there, and I don't want to take any more time, it says this is not law, and it doesn't affect, oh yeah, in the last paragraph, it says, the beginning of the third sentence, the plan document itself does not change any existing laws or other regulations. It doesn't make any recommendations on taxation. So these are only recommendations. To say that they have to be followed in absolute, there's nowhere in the report that says that. The other thing is we presented to you the petition for annexation at the request of staff. We met with Anna Harper, excuse me, explained to her, and we've also met with Molly. And I said, we explained to them what our purpose is to amend our PUD. And as part of that is to add the two lots to our PUD and then amend the PUD. And they said, well, that's fine. First, you have to submit the petition for annexation. And so we said, fine. Now, the way we understand how this thing's going to work and should work is that this thing should go to City Council for first reading for the petition. And whether you support us or not at the first reading, that's fine. But then it would go to a second reading, and that reading would be deferred until such time as both the PUD amendment to the PUD and the petition for annexation could be heard at the same time. Believe me, Ross, I have no desire to annex a piece of property in which the city is going to require me to, or limit me to 1 unit per acre, whereas I can develop that property in the county of Charleston as townhouses.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do that. And if you turn me down, that's fine. I understand that, but I'm gonna develop my property as commercial. And I can't imagine how horrible that's gonna be and how adversely that will impact the neighbors. And if the goal is to minimize impact, it seemed like this is a no-brainer, but to support development as a limited residential project. And with that, I'll end my comments. Thank you for your time.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Cooper, and thank you for your consultant and for addressing the committee. I know this is an important issue for James Island, and wanted to make sure we had a full record at the committee level, so we can make our recommendation to full council on this matter. Does anybody from the committee have any comments or questions? I think the mayor and Councilman Waring had to jump off for the Public Works meeting coming up here at 5. But does anybody have any comments or questions on this? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time looking at everybody because it's still in share screen. Do y'all mind disabling the share screen option?
I've jumped out of that.
Okay, great. So as a matter of like due process, guys, I mean, this is something I don't think can be deferred out of real estate. I think we have to make a recommendation to full council for tomorrow. I think when someone submits an annexation request, they're entitled to a full vote from council. I think we serve as basically like a recommendation function in this regard. So, we can have that full debate and discussion tomorrow. So just wanted to add that to everybody's, thought process as we move forward here. But,
Chairman Pell, just real quick,
Yes.
and correct me if I'm wrong, Christopher, but I believe this will be reported out October 8th, not tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. So we've got some time. All right. Anybody from the committee have a comment, or are y'all ready to vote on this?
So, well, one question.
Councilmember Tingler?
The zoning in the county is R4 right now. Is that right? And what is how many units per acre is R4?
4
units an acre.
Okay.
There's a recent zoning change.
So in Mr. Morgan, remind me, what's the acreage of the properties sought to be annexed?
Molly, it's what, 2.5?
Yeah.
Yes, 2.43 about.
Yeah. So this would be substantially higher density than available under the county. Councilmember Greg, I saw your hand go up.
You just answered my question. Thank you, Mr. Uphill.
Yeah. Look, here's my comments on it. I think City of Charleston is probably the most annexation friendly municipality that's ever existed in the state of South Carolina. So I think when our staff is recommending against annexation, that means something, and that's significant. We all know that there's concerns about flooding and things of that nature, having to buy out properties over the years. We just heard about our water plan recommendations a few weeks ago. These can be very complicated issues, as Mr. Cooper mentioned. I'm just not comfortable moving forward with a recommendation right now. I'm open to having my mind changed if we're getting into the weeds some more on this, and I can be convinced that we can develop this in a safe manner, frankly, that ultimately won't be borne on the backs of taxpayers. But I don't want to annex property and rezone property only to run into a brick wall, the development run into a brick wall with our stormwater department in a couple of years. That doesn't do anybody any good here. So I think this needs to be studied a little bit more. But happy to hear other perspectives on the committee if anybody has them. Councilmember Tinkler?
Yeah, I guess just 2 points. And is there a way we can just sort of, what's the motion currently on the floor?
So I think there was a motion to approve just to get it up for discussion.
Yeah.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
So, I kind of like the chair said, I mean, I'm a little hesitant to go forward with something like this that, we have a comprehensive plan for a reason, right? And but at the same time, I'm dealing with these checkerboard properties in my district, so I can understand the city trying to get these properties in our jurisdiction so we can manage them better. So I'm a little torn on this issue right now. So I don't know if there's a way we can move to just send it on to council, or if that just requires an approval specifically. Can we? Is there a motion to sort of adopt it out of committee?
Yeah, I mean, I think that basically what we're doing is we're recommending as part of our report to council on what we want to do with these annexations. So it's not like a formal up or down at the committee level. I think that regardless of what, so for example, if we were to reject this at the committee level, that doesn't mean like it doesn't go to council. It just goes to council with the committee's negative recommendation.
Yeah.
So
I think
there's also, sorry.
Oh, Julia, please.
Well, I think there have also been situations where the committee has no recommendation coming out of committee, and that's the message delivered to council.
Interesting. That's good to know.
Fundamentally, I was trying to reach out to Councilmember Parker today, and I was unable to get in contact with her. And I understand she lives in the community that's we're backing up to this property, so I wanted to check with her before I made up my mind on it. So if I move to send it out of committee without a recommendation.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that approach, the no recommendation approach, and we can spend the time between now and October 8th talking with Councilmember Parker, talking with our staff, talking with the property owner to see if we can get a little bit more information prior to having to take a formal vote one way or the other. I think the no recommendation strikes the right balance, and I'm inclined to proceed in that direction. But we've got a motion on the floor to approve it.
Whose motion was that?
I think it was the mayor and Councilmember Waring seconded it.
So, Mr. Chairman, I have from Brittany that there was a motion put on the floor by Councilmember Waring that was seconded by Bowden.
Okay.
For discussion.
Oh, so it's just for discussion, not one way or the other.
I
He
think
was a
it
little
might.
apprehensive about the approval, I recall.
Yeah.
So it might make sense for someone to withdraw that motion or amend it if there's an additional motion.
Can I withdraw?
Understood.
And Councilmember Waring, do you withdraw the motion?
He's gone, isn't he?
I think
He's
Councilmember
still
Waring.
on.
Councilmember
He's
Waring, you
logged
there?
in. All right, well, maybe not.
If the initial motion does not have a second, it fails. So then we can go
Okay.
ahead and start over again.
So the initial
Okay.
motion did have a second.
Councilman Bowden, I believe, is going to withdraw a second.
Yep.
Okay, I got it.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay. So is anyone going to second Councilmember Waring's motion from earlier today? Going once, going twice. Okay, that motion fails. Can I entertain a new motion?
I'll move to report this out of committee without a recommendation.
Second.
Okay, moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. Thanks.
I'm sorry, Councilmembers Bowden and Tinkler, how did you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate all the committee members' time, staff, everybody that joined us today. This was a pretty marathon real estate committee meeting as they come, and appreciate everybody today, and look forward to continuing the discussion on all these important issues. And I'll see everybody tomorrow.
Yep. Thank you all for your time, council members. We really appreciate you allowing us to present to you.